So life under Ruben Amorim has not been smooth sailing for Manchester United, to say the least. 21 defeats in 49 matches in charge of the club, over £200 million spent in the summer, only 7 goals scored in the Premier League. Already been knocked out of the Carabao Cup by League 2 Grimsby, with the international break fast approaching. Is it now or never for United to part ways with Amarim? Sunderland this weekend, Flex. If United don't get a positive result and there is that international break, could that be it for him?
I'm not so sure with INEOS. With the reports saying that they still back him, they think he can turn it around. They want to try and give him the whole season. Personally, I think the decision should have been made already to change manager. I do.
You think it should be sacked now?
It should have happened already. I don't know how we're still here talking about it. He's very fortunate to still be in the job. We haven't seen any, and I don't think that's controversial.
If you had it your way,
yeah, of
he'd
course.
be sacked.
I've said this many times. Yeah, I don't.
Not to me, you haven't.
Oh, well, maybe we just
maybe
haven't. Maybe we just haven't had the show to say it. Well, I've said it to you. It's not something I enjoy saying. It's not something that I want to say to be sensationalist or notoriety. It's just you can't look at what's going on, and not, in my opinion, and see that there's a way out under the manager. I all wished it would work well.
Of course.
Maybe there's a miracle where he can, but I don't see that happening. And to me, it looks like we're just prolonging the inevitable, allowing more games to go by, more points to go down the drain. There's so much made of this, back-to-back wins. We're going to just get 2 wins on the board. The fact that we're even having that conversation coming up to a year in now is just embarrassing. It really is. It shows just how little progression there's been. But there's been none. There's been no progression. There isn't one player who's improved. There isn't one player who looks better or more comfortable in what we're trying to do. Obviously, results haven't improved. And I think that there's this sort of snarl inside that's like, you haven't got the stomach to see it get really bad. Why do you want to keep changing managers? And I don't understand this principle of like, we'll be back here in a year, or who'd you get, or, it's got to be just the whole club's broken, so that's why we just have to stay with this. No, I don't think it's too much to ask a manager to show some improvement from finishing 15th last year, albeit coming in halfway through a season, needing time, needing a pre-season, needing players, to show a little bit. Just show a little bit. You don't have to be in the top 4. You certainly don't have to be challenging for the league. In my opinion, you don't even have to be in European places. For me, I'm like, you can be 8th. You can be 8th, but I can see something building. I can see some performances starting to arise. I'm seeing a good cohort of players starting to improve and understand your principles. We're getting outdone by novice managers. We're getting outdone by players, by managers. Everybody understands what Man United are going to do. Ruben Amorim's played his hand, and everybody's dealing with him.
So in a season which started with so much optimism, following a good start to the window, which saw Ruben Amorim splash over £200 million on players, but nothing but poor performance after poor performance from his side since pretty much the opening game of the season. There was that 3-1 defeat away at Brentford last weekend. Let's now hear from the man himself, Ruben Amorim, who after defeat to Brentford was asked what this result means for his future.
It's always the same. We have to be really strong to get back again with our fans. We need to win games, so it's always the same story. We try to create a momentum, we get a big punch, and we go again. So that's what we are going to do this week.
Flex, one thing I cannot get my head around. I understand that Man United have been all over the place for the best part of a decade, okay? And Ruben Amorim came into a really, really tricky situation. But right now, Ruben Amorim's job is to coach football players that he's got at his disposal. And I appreciate I'm probably sounding like many other people like a broken record by using the word system. I cannot understand how Ruben Amorim has been in charge of Manchester United for nearly a year. And pretty much week in, week out, we are seeing the same thing play out in front of our eyes. And he doesn't adapt. He doesn't adjust the system. That, for me, is absolutely criminal. I think it is a dereliction of duty to be the manager of a football club the size of Manchester United,
and
to do the same thing game in, game out, and see absolutely no signs of improvement. I'm not going to sit here, Flex, and pretend to be some sort of tactical genius, okay? But it's quite obvious, I think, to anybody when you watch Manchester United play with this two-man midfield. One of those midfielders, by the way, is Bruno Fernandes this season, who wants to be an attacking player, right? Man United getting outnumbered game in, game out. We saw Harry Maguire playing on the halfway line against Brentford. That first goal, long ball over the top, he hasn't got the pace for it. And it annoys me, and I'm not even a Man United fan, as you know, to see this guy do the same thing game in, game out, and you see the same results week in, week out. You see no improvement, and at no point has he even thought, hang on a minute, if we go with the 4-3-3 and go with the extra midfield player and get Kobe Mainoo in there, maybe we might be better in transitions, maybe we might be better in build-up play, maybe on the counter-attack we might be harder to play through. I cannot understand how a professional manager is literally sticking to the same thing week in, week out, which is clearly not working.
It's literally your job. That's what you have to find solutions. And right now, it doesn't seem to me that Ruben Amorim is even trying to find solutions. And that's even if you got the best hope in the world that, listen, it just needs time. Well, then you're looking at somebody who's going to keep doing the same thing, so you're going to see the same results. So even if you do believe that he's going to turn it around, what are you believing in? That's my question to Man United fans that are like, just hold on in there. I'm saying, what are you seeing that makes you think this is going to turn around? Because every time the clock starts back to zero, or we get to one win and we go, right, oh gosh, come on, back-to-back wins. We never do it. It's nearly a year. So what are you looking at now? What? Beat Sunderland? Back-to-back wins. Got to go Anfield next. What back-to-back wins? What are you talking about?
I think you're right. I think like when Klopp and Arteta both arrived at Liverpool and Arsenal respectively,
you earned the time.
They're kind of the opening years weren't as plain sailing as what maybe you'd have thought. But with Klopp in particular, you saw him trying to implement this high-pressing, aggressive style of football. You saw what he was trying to do, so you thought if you gave him more time, allowed him to carry on building, you could see the end product. Well, I think you're absolutely spot on. With this Ruben Amorim system in this Man United
you're
team,
seeing nothing.
I don't know what sort of team you're trying to be and what you're trying to build.
And a lot of fans do this, again, about like, you've got to give someone time, you've got to give this. Well, this is a two-way contract, by the way. There's a sort of default set of time that a manager gets as soon as he gets in the job. You know what I mean? 5, 10, 15, 20 games, get to the summer, get some players in. You kind of get given that. Man United fans are the most patient fans in the world.
Yeah.
Finished 15th and said, no.
And you're chanting his name game in, game out.
Chanting his name, you know, and I have, that's fine. So don't accuse other fans of being, this is not impatience. This is not knee-jerk. This is not trigger-happy. This is a sustained period. This is 32 games in the Premier League. This is round about 50 games in all competitions. If you can't show not one iota, not one smidge, not one perspex of improvement in 50 games in all competitions, and you get beat by a variety of opposition, League 2 opposition, Europa League opposition, Premier League top of the table opposition, middle of the table opposition, relegation candidate oppositions, or players or teams that have just come in, you're getting beat by all sorts. You can't sit and tell me as a United fan that you just don't have the stomach for it. What I would say to those people is, you're just doing that out of false hope. You're doing that out of the fear of, but what do we do next? And there's almost like this little gotcha of like this discussion going on in the fan base. But who do you bring in though? You tell me who's going to come in here and 100% fix this. And if you can't provide that answer, which obviously nobody knows, it's like, see, it's better to stay where you are. That's just not even how life works. Like in normal life. Like there's so many examples. If you buy a pair of shoes and they didn't fit right and they started, are you just going to say, I'm not going to buy a different brand of shoe? It's just, I'm never going to, I just won't wear shoes. Like if you get on a flight with one airline and it's cancelled and it's late and it was delayed by ages, are you going to go, I'm never going to get a plane, or are you going to try a different airline? If you get a car that doesn't work, that's just not how life works. So guess what? In a year's time, if we get here and there's a year gone by and a new guy hasn't showed anything, see you later as well.
I think you know what my next question is going to be then. What is your new pair of shoes? What airline are you going for? I think I've got to ask you.
We're in a position now.
If Man United do sack Ruben Amorim in early October, and this is the thing. This is where I think INEOS got themselves in a tricky situation. I thought Erik ten Hag should have been sacked in the summer. Yeah, they should have given him the first 6 to 8 games. They got
nervous and didn't do it.
I know, and they shouldn't, because I think it becomes difficult for Man United when you give your manager a pre-season, you give him players to suit his system, and then you sack that manager 6 games into a season, and then whoever does come in again, short or long-term option. It feels like that head coach is then just going to be thinking, I need to get to next summer so I can bring in my own players and have a pre-season.
And that's what puts people off.
And you're almost having the same position the new manager will be in as to what Amarim was in. But my question to you would be, you made it clear on the show, on this podcast, that you want Ruben Amorim not to be Man United manager. Who would you go for?
The people that are there, Glasner, I would happily take him. Iriola, I'd happily take him. People are saying Gareth Southgate. I don't think that's the answer, but we wouldn't be 15th. We would not be 15th. Long term, it wouldn't work, but we wouldn't be 15th. This is what I thought getting Gareth Southgate would look like. Would probably lose loads of games and be near the relegation zone and nearly get relegated. Well, that's what's happened with one of the most attractive coaches in Europe. So, yeah. Glasner's at the top of the list probably, and Iriola are the obvious ones. I know there's Xavi knocking about, etc. Can you get Nagelsmann in the summer, etc.? I'm not sure, but if you give me Glasner or Iriola, I wouldn't be mad.
Oh God, I think you'd be over the moon, wouldn't you, to end up with Oliver Glasner?
Unai Emery wouldn't be mad.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Let's now hear from talkSPORT's very own drive presenter, huge Man United fan, Andy Goldstein. He says the job is simply too big for Amarim at United.
The job is obviously way too big for him. He's in no way capable of being Manchester United manager. I don't know if you saw Match of the Day. Mika Richards did a great understanding of what shape changed and what players moved positions when Man United were making the subs. Usually a sub is like for like with Garte for Kobe Mainu, but they were completely different. He was taking off right wing backs, and then the player that was coming on was playing. He moved the right of the three defenders to the middle. De Ligt went over to the middle. Harry Maguire. Like every time a substitution, the shape was changed. Right. We ended up playing Mbuemo right wing back, Mason Mount a left wing back. Everything about what happens to Manchester United, everything is utterly appalling. Yeah. And he needs to be sacked. I've said it before. It's horrible to come on national radio and say he needs to be sacked. I can't feel sorry for these people because they're taking £8 million home, right? Yeah. But the job is clearly too big for him.
I can't remember a head coach whose substitutions have less of an impact on games than Ruben Amorim's at Manchester United.
Yeah, and they just confuse the situation even more. The thing of bringing on centre-backs all the time, like for like. Everybody knows that apart from the goalkeeper, you don't change, but centre-back is probably the only outfield position that, unless your centre-back's had an absolute stinker, is about to get sent off or he's costing you sort of own goals or you just got to get him out of there, you don't change that for the rhythm of the game. You don't bring a centre-back on against quick opposition who have been running 75, 80 minutes saying they're really warm. Get in there and go make a statement, Lenny. Get off the bench. What is that? You know, what is it? The only time you should be doing that is to take a centre-back off to put an attacker on up front and leave yourself with less defenders, etc. Or to stick a centre-back up front like Harry Maguire because he's good at headers and the dying embers of a game. But he persists with that. And I noticed that. I looked at Sam Matterface. We're looking at each other in the stadium. I go, what? And Boomer's gone right wing back. What's this? Dallow's gone right centre back. Then 5 minutes later, Mason Mount's left 10. Then he's left wing back. They're already not comfortable in the system, and actually the system stayed the same. Just players just moving all around different chess pieces on the board to no avail. You're bringing in Kobe Mainu out the cold, no confidence, he gives the ball away, then the game's over. It's just a walking, living mess, and I just don't understand. I can't understand how anyone can look at it and think, no, it just needs a little longer, just to see. The next games, right, are Sunderland at home, like we said, and they're doing all right. They're doing very well, right, in the Champions League spots. Then out of the international break, it's Anfield. Then it's Brighton at home. Then it's Forest away. Where are the points going to come from? Where's this turnaround going to click in? Then we're going to be in that new November, and then Spurs away. That was it. That's the one I forgot. Yeah. Thanks for reminding me. Spurs away. Where are them points? Where's this run coming from then? Then you're going to be in November, basically Christmas. Then what? Then you're in January? When? What are you waiting for? That's all this. We're just prolonging the inevitable. So let's get there. And now I'm not even, I'll be honest, I'm not mad at Ruben Amorim anymore.
You should be.
The reason why I'm not is because he's not going to sack himself. And even though he's a bit emotionally unstable and says, I might walk, I might not walk, maybe I will, 20 years, maybe I do want to stay, maybe I don't. He could say all that. I do believe that, like he says, he is passionate about, as long as he's in the job. That's why he says, I don't worry for my job. As long as I'm here, I can't make the decision. As long as I'm here, I'm going to give all I've got. Now, what he's got is not enough. I'm looking at you, INEOS. You're the people who can change this. I know Ruben Amorim is, because he can change the system and stuff.
That'd
But,
be a start.
but he's not doing it. So now, as INEOS, you are enabling this now. You're allowing this to happen week after week. And whether that's financial, we'll see whether this is all lip service of we're comfortable where we are, we're not really looking at alternatives. And then, you know, people like Crookie and Ben Jays have spoken about this sort of November 1st, you know, with different severance packages because it's not within. So maybe there's some financials going on. And I do look at it and think that's, you know, Iriola's free in the summer, Glasner's free in the summer, their contracts are up. Are they thinking, we've just committed so much to this project? Severance package to Erik ten Hag, compensation to Sporting to bring him here, players for him. We can't be this wrong. We just have to I know it's bad, but we can't. Do you know what I mean? They can. Like, I just feel like that's what's going on, because it's not, they're not judging this off of football merit. Because if it was, he'd be gone. So that shows me as a fan that this is about either wanting to be wrong and strong and not wanting to admit you've made another massive mistake, or you can't afford it, because it's not football. It's impossible.
Good stuff, Flex. A passionate rant from Flex. Ruben Amorim is still in a job. It's Sunderland on Saturday, Old Trafford in the Premier League, then an international break, and after that, Manchester United go to Anfield.